At the dawn of the 1970s, a collection of remarkably gifted California musicians were united by a single ambition. Yet one major obstacle stood in their way. 3 albums had come and gone without attracting much attention, and with their recording deal barely intact, the band found themselves staring at a harsh choice: reinvent themselves or fade away. They had no way of knowing that an extraordinary voice, uncovered almost by chance, along with one song sparked by an unlikely expression, would completely reshape their future. What followed became the remarkable journey of a band that rose from the edge of failure to become one of the defining hard rock acts of the 1980s. Now let's rewind to where it all started. Back in 1971 in San Francisco, California, Walter "Herbie" Herbert, the longtime manager of guitar icon Carlos Santana, envisioned something different. His goal was to assemble a team of elite musicians who could serve as a premier backing group, ready to support major performers during live appearances and recording projects. Among the earliest recruits were 2 musicians already well known: keyboardist and singer Greg Rowley and guitarist Neil Sean, fresh from leaving Santana in 1972. Before long, drummer Prairie Prince, bassist Ross Valerie, and guitarist George Tickner completed the lineup. In those early days, they performed under the name Golden Gate Rhythm Section. Their objective couldn't have been clearer. Their mission was to become the ultimate support band for any headlining artist who needed first-class musicians. Before long, though, they confronted an uncomfortable realization: the spotlight rarely shines on the musicians standing behind the stars. That insight prompted a bold decision. Instead of remaining in the background, they would build a true band centered around their own identity and original material. Around that time, a road crew member suggested a name that perfectly captured their vision: Journey. The name immediately stayed. Even so, Journey's earliest years looked nothing like the band audiences recognize today. Their music leaned far more toward jazz fusion than the arena-sized rock sound that would eventually define them. Unfortunately, their first 3 albums struggled to attract mainstream listeners. Commercial success remained limited, and executives at Columbia Records were beginning to lose patience. Eventually, the label delivered an unmistakable warning: find a new direction or risk losing everything. That message convinced the group they could no longer remain the same. A different musical identity was essential, and achieving it meant welcoming fresh talent into the lineup. By 1977, determined to survive in an increasingly crowded music scene, Journey recruited Robert Fleischman as their new frontman. With his arrival, the band's sound started moving toward a more radio-friendly style, similar to acts like Foreigner in Boston. It was an intentional shift: adapt or be left behind. Not long afterward, they found themselves opening concerts to giants like Black Sabbath and Judas Priest. Interest in Journey was steadily building. Behind the scenes, however, harmony was in short supply. Fleischman, despite his obvious vocal gifts, struggled to find common ground. He frequently clashed with fellow band members and even manager Herbie Herbert. As conflicts continued to mount, Herbert quietly started preparing for another change. Journey required a new frontman, not simply a gifted singer, but someone capable of becoming the missing element that could finally lift the band to the next level. That realization launched an exhausting search. Herbert reviewed endless demo recordings and audition tapes, but none of them captured the sound he wanted. Then, almost unexpectedly, a cassette arrived from a little-known group called Alien Project. One track on the tape carried the title, "If You Need Me, Call Me." Within moments of hearing the opening lines, Herbert recognized it. The voice was distinctive, commanding, and unforgettable. The exact sound Journey had been searching for. At last, Journey had discovered the vocalist they needed. The singer who immediately impressed Herbie Herbert was Steve Perry, a 28-year-old from Hanford, California. Perry fronted Alien Project, but instead of enjoying rock star success, he spent his days working on his stepfather's farm, raising turkeys while also taking construction jobs. At that point, he still questioned whether becoming a successful rock singer was even possible, until everything suddenly changed. Following Herbert's request, a record company representative contacted Perry. They invited him to to Los Angeles for an audition. Perry was stunned by the opportunity. It felt like a dream, though one complication remained.
Journey still had an official lead singer, Robert Fleischman. Herbert, always thinking several steps ahead, chose to wait for exactly the right opportunity. The transition needed to unfold without unnecessary attention. During one rehearsal, after Fleischman had departed, Perry was quietly brought in. He grabbed the microphone and performed his very first music with Journey. Within moments, everyone present sensed that something unforgettable had just occurred. There was little room for debate. The choice became obvious. Steve Perry would become Journey's new lead vocalist. His first official performance arrived on October 28, 1977, in San Francisco, where Perry appeared on stage with Journey for the first time. That performance signaled the start of an entirely new chapter. A band once defined by jazz fusion and progressive rock gradually evolved into something far more melodic and widely appealing. It was a sound created to fill enormous venues. The style would eventually become known as AOR, arena rock, stadium rock, and pop rock. Perry's soaring, crystal-clear voice, highlighted by its unmistakable countertenor quality, soon became the defining sound of Journey. Even so, the transformation wasn't embraced by everyone. Many devoted fans resisted the band's new musical path. Inside the group, some members also wondered whether Perry truly fit this increasingly pop-driven direction. One person never lost faith, however. Herbie Herbert remained convinced that choosing Steve Perry would prove to be the decision that changed everything. As the years unfolded, it became clear that Herbie Herbert's faith was completely justified. Everything changed in 1978 with the release of Infinity, the first Journey album featuring Steve Perry as lead singer. It didn't become an instant blockbuster, but it accomplished something the band had never achieved before by breaking into the Billboard Top 100 with songs like Wheel in the Sky and Lights. The album eventually climbed to number 21 on the charts, giving Journey their first ever platinum certification. Last, the band had found real momentum. Only a year later, in 1979, Evolution followed. This time, the commercial success was impossible to ignore. The record delivered Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin', Journey's first single to reach the Billboard Top 20. Next came Departure in 1980, the album that elevated the band to an entirely new level. It climbed to number 8 on the charts, fueled by songs like Any Way You Want It, which lit up radio stations and captured audiences across America. Journey had fully left behind the experimental identity of their early years. They had transformed into one of rock's fastest rising acts, charging ahead with unstoppable confidence. Even so, the biggest breakthrough was still waiting around the corner. Toward the end of 1980, Journey started developing their next studio album. Around that same period, keyboardist Greg Rowley stepped away from the group after completing the Departure tour. Before leaving, Rowley suggested someone he believed was the perfect successor, Jonathan Cain, then playing with the Babies, who soon became Journey's newest member. While writing together in Oakland, Steve Perry asked Cain whether he had an idea for a song with genuine emotional depth. That simple question unlocked a life-changing memory. Several years earlier, during his difficult days in Los Angeles, Cain had reached a moment of complete uncertainty. Feeling discouraged and unsure of his future, he phoned his father in Chicago to ask whether it was time to abandon his dream and return home. His father's response became unforgettable. "Don't stop believing, son. Stay on course. We have a vision. It's going to happen." Those words left a lasting impression on Cain. Without realizing where it would eventually lead, he wrote the phrase "Don't Stop Believin'" inside his songwriting notebook. When Perry heard the title, he instantly understood its potential. Together, the band built Don't Stop Believin', with every member adding their own musical brilliance. The finished song embodied hope, determination, and the refusal to quit chasing a dream, exactly the lesson Cain's father had shared years before. By the time the recording was complete, everyone in the band realized they had created something extraordinary. There was no debate that it belonged at the very beginning of the album and should serve as its first single. Then, in 1981, Journey unveiled Escape, and the reaction exceeded every expectation. Escape became the defining album of Journey's career.
Just a small town girl.
It rose all the way to #1 in the United States, sold more than 9 million copies, and earned 9 times platinum status. Don't Stop Believing, together with hits like Who's Crying Now and Open Arms, all reached the Billboard Top 10. Among them, Open Arms proved especially remarkable. Spending 6 consecutive weeks at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100, it helped establish Journey as one of the signature rock bands of the 1980s. Throughout this incredible period, Journey sold over 80 million records across the globe, securing their place among the most successful rock bands in history. But in music, every remarkable rise is eventually tested by difficult times. That turning point is exactly where the story goes next. Even at the height of their fame, Journey could not escape adversity.
Although fans remained fiercely devoted to the band's music, critics became increasingly hostile. Rolling Stone criticized several of Journey's releases, even describing Escape as one of the weakest albums ever to top the charts, while dismissing the group as corporate rock. Still, those reviews did little to slow Journey's momentum. Songs like Don't Stop Believin' continued to dominate radio playlists while discovering entirely new audiences through movies, television, and popular culture. The track enjoyed a remarkable revival over the years, from the unforgettable ending of The Sopranos to the very first episode of Glee, its regular appearances at sporting events, and eventually its massive resurgence during the digital streaming era. After selling more than 18 million units, collecting numerous historic certifications, and accumulating hundreds of millions of streams, Forbes would later describe Don't Stop Believin' as the greatest song of all time. Yet while the song's reputation continued reaching new heights, Journey's internal story was becoming far more complicated. Steve Perry, the unmistakable voice behind the band's greatest successes, was facing profound personal challenges. Endless years on the road had worn him down, while his mother's declining health weighed heavily on his heart. Following her death, Perry, both physically and emotionally drained, decided to leave Journey in 1987. Although he briefly reunited with the band to record Trial by Fire in 1996, a serious hip injury and growing pressure to return to touring ultimately convinced him to leave permanently in 1998. His absence created a space that even today, no vocalist has completely managed to replace. Journey carried on with new singers, including Steve Augeri, Jeff Scott Soto, and later Arnel Pineda. The band successfully preserved its remarkable legacy and continues performing today, but many fans believe the unique chemistry of the Steve Perry years has never truly returned. Their emotional reunion at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony in 2017, where Perry stood beside his former bandmates once again, reminded everyone of an unforgettable chapter in rock history. That remarkable period may never come back, but its influence survives through every listener who experienced it firsthand and every new fan who continues singing those timeless classics decades later. It's remarkable how one extraordinary vocalist can shape the identity of an entire band through their voice, personality, and unmistakable style. Some singers become so inseparable from their groups that when they leave, whether by choice or through tragedy, the band is never truly the same again. One powerful example is Nazareth. They climbed to the peak of rock music with one unforgettable ballad that became an international sensation. Their legendary frontman, Dan McCafferty, played a vital role in that success, and since his departure, no replacement has fully recreated what he brought to the band. Click on the next video and join me as we explore the extraordinary story of Nazareth. I'll meet you there, fellow lover of classic rock.